in terms of critics in architectures, while the rest, at 87% of the audience, say no.
Yeah.
So this is also one of the main reasons, because the critic in architecture is so unfamiliar for us, the young architects, and also I think the senior architects as well. So how does this happen? And probably you have some insights into these matters. Is it also happen in Malaysia and the rest of the world?
Global. It's
Globally.
It's a global situation, Andesh. It starts with architectural education, and most of our curricula here in Asia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, you name it. It's all predicated on a curriculum of architecture that's come from us from the West. Yeah. And this lack of critical discourse is a result of a curriculum, architectural education, that does not encourage it at all. And this is a big problem. It's a global problem. It's not just Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. If you were, any of you were at the discussion last night with Scarpa, even Scarpa was guilty of the same lack of critique, of self-critique, And so, I mean, if someone as talented, as skilled as he suffers from a lack of his own self-critique, how are we supposed to go on then? You see, this is the big problem. We are too afraid to talk critically, and because we are too afraid to sound offensive, nothing gets talked about, and so everything keeps on going, and the ignorance propagates. Yeah. So maafkan saya tak boleh. Ada banyak perkataan dalam bahasa Inggeris yang saya tak tahu dalam bahasa Indonesia, ya.
Yeah.
So the problem is the propagation, yeah, of this ignorance is because we are all kita semua takut untuk buka kita punya suara about what is wrong, about what we don't understand, about what everyone says is good, but we personally think is bad. But we are afraid to say it's bad, because if we say it's bad, especially on social media, everyone will shit on us, We'll get totally laughed at, we'll get criticized, and we'll be shamed. And because we cannot bear to have social networks shame us, we keep silent, We censor ourselves. And this is what is the problem. And it's a legacy handed to us from the West, from the countries most responsible to actually lead us in the right direction. They are the ones who have led us in the wrong direction. Japan, United States, Europe, they are the worst kinds of countries for any kind of maybe some, not Europe is not a country, of course, and France is maybe, and Germany are a bit more critical. They do not mind it so much, but Australia, Japan, United States, London, they are hopeless. They are the worst perpetrators. They're the worst hypocrites. So you won't have any of that, coming from them. So it's good that you are starting this, and I think in Indonesia, especially, you are one of the first. You are, in fact, to actually be encouraging this. So I'm very happy to be participating in this particular discourse. Yeah.
So that's good to hear. But back to the thing that you mentioned before, it is also related to fear, that we fear to make a critic and also to be criticized. So, but
not to critique, but just to say saya tak faham. Kenapa semua orang suka bangunan ini? Saya tak faham. Saya rasa ini tak bagus. That is all. It's not even be critical, but just to say saya tak faham is difficult. Yeah. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
So it's also fear to being honest, I presume. Honesty is such a rare thing in design, usually, especially in the designer world, who usually giving credits. But where does this fear came from? You said before that is it being designed by the educational system, by the curriculum, by the institutions?
I think a lot of it is human nature. Yeah, it's the way we are. We do not, especially in Asia. We are not confrontational. We are gentle people. We do not want to make anyone else unhappy, and because of that, a lack of desire to confront, to offend, we kill education. And education is, by definition, a critical process. You have to be critical in education. But because we do not want to offend anyone, we are afraid to be critical. And because of that, we do not learn. And this is the this is the biggest problem in architectural education. We think that we're studying design, but in 98% of the universities everywhere in the whole world, including the Bartlett, including the Architectural Association, including MIT, including the Harvard Graduate School of Design, and every single university in Japan is teaching styling. It's not teaching design. They're teaching about how to craft form. Yes? And we think this is the most important thing, the top of the, puncak gunung, yeah? That we must be good in form. But this is not architecture. It's only one side. Architecture is bigger than that, yeah? Ada many, yeah? Form satu saja. Tapi apa yang lain kita tak belajar ini sebab sekolah-sekolah architecture tidak mengajar kita dalam disiplin design. Dia mengajar kita dalam disiplin styling. Styling tentang form, content tentang design. Tapi kita tak familiar, ya. Kita punya lecturer juga, dia juga tak faham sebab dia punya lecturer tak mengajar dia juga. This is a tradition that is carried on for more than 100 years, or as long as the architectural profession has existed. Since Bernini, since Tutankhamun, yeah. But we have not questioned this because it's a dominant paradigm. We think there's no problem, but it is a big problem. It's a very serious problem.
So sorry. Okay, talking about the problems, could you explain to us or elaborate more about what is the urgency or what is the biggest problem caused by this behavior, by these cultures of fear of honesty?
Okay, to draw an analogy, we now, there was a time, maybe 10 years ago, we had a lot of fashion magazines, GQ, Her, and all of these magazines were all about beautiful people, yeah? And all of us, all the women want to be skinny with big breasts and long legs. Men like to have big shoulders and very Bollywood looks in India, or movie star like looks, But now we know better. Oh, this is ini salah. Character lebih penting, ya. Apakah yang dalam kita, ya. So we can say, we can be critical with human beings, but when it comes to architecture, we still are behaving like what we were 10 years ago. But we think it is about design, but actually it isn't. Ini pandangan saja. It's only about looks. So we say, oh, but the quality of light itu bila matahari masuk dalam bangunan itu cantik sekali. How can you criticize this? Hey, hello, ini mukanya saja. But is it a good building? Does it make people? Does it forge new relationship yang baru dengan kita? But we don't ask this question because we're not taught about this in school. Because school itself teaches us about the beautiful sunlight coming into the building. About kerennya bangunan itu. It's so rustic and beautiful and it looks so cool. Yeah? But looks, this is, ini 10 tahun lama. We have not moved ahead with architecture. We have moved ahead with human beings. Now we hopefully look more at character. So perempuan atau lelaki itu tak berapa cantik atau they're not good looking, but we still know, wait, let's get to know the person better, deeper first. But we do not do this with buildings. the superficial, yeah. We only want the building.
Katakannya di depan sini soalnya yang nge-swipe-nya.
Sorry.
No, there's a new participant.
I'm talking too much. We should ask someone else to join.
Okay, so I think it still needs to be warmed up a bit before questions. You said before about also the looks, the form. We act more like a stylist instead of truly a designer. So that would be the bold line. And this happened in most architects, and most in terms of probably more than 80%, 90%.
And don't even talk about the average architect in Indonesia or the average graduate in school. We're talking about the most famous architects in the world. 95 to 98% of the most famous architects in the world are stylists. They're not actually designers. This is what shocked me. And if you hear me say this, you will be shocked too. But think for a moment. Think for a moment past the superficial look. How are buildings any different one from the next? They all are air conditioned. Most of them have windows in the high rises that cannot open. If they open, they're only open once in a while because it's too warm to keep them open. You got to turn on the air conditioning again. So this is just for tall buildings. So not only for the average architect, but for the world's most famous architects. But we think they are good because they are famous and they are published in magazines. But do we really know these buildings? We never ask, we never study these buildings. So we only listen to what the magazines tell us. Front cover, mestilah bagus. Front cover means it has to be good. But this is not true. But we do not know this because we have not in school been taught how to critique a building, how to really understand what a building is. It's not taught in school. This is the biggest problem because critique and editing, self-critique and editing design is the most critical skill a designer must have. But this is not anything we are taught how to do in school. And this is why we are in the crisis we're in. Most people, most of the intelligent people, they do not respect architects. We believe that we are in a good place only because the herd, meaning the lowest common denominator, the majority of the people who are themselves not very smart, think architecture is good, it's a sexy profession. But we should not be looking at them as a gauge of how well they're doing. We should be looking at the most intelligent people. And the most intelligent people in the world, I can tell you, do not respect architects. Because they think they are only doing it for brand. They're only doing it like Calvin Klein, at the signature label. And that's the only reason why they're architects. They're stylists. They are like artists. Form saya, my form is a little bit different. Lain sikit. Orang sukanya banyak. Saya dapat, I have popularity. And I will become famous. And that is what the profession is. This is wrong, you know?
Yeah, and in the age of social media, the terms would be Instagrammable are quite popping up. Like your building must be good on pictures,
yes.
and
it's considered a compliment when you say, "Oh, your architecture, your work project is so Instagrammable." We treat it as a compliment when it's actually an insult.
And in Instagram, it's only have likes button without dislikes button, so it doesn't play quite fair.
That's even worse than Facebook. Huh?
So,
but does Instagram have follow as well?
Yeah.
Yeah,
follow. And follow. And you don't have Instagram account. So already have a response from our friends, Mbak Vivi. Mbak Vivi, would you like to say it to Kevin directly, or
should please.
Mbak Vivi?
Yes. Hello. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Avianti.
Hi, long time no see.
Yes, and I can't see you. I can only see your photograph.
The connection here is so unstable.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. Andes, can I speak in Bahasa Indonesia?
Yep.
Boleh.
And if Kevin already understood the question, I think you can directly answer as well, Kevin. But if you
you can translate. Better if you translate. Then I will confirm that, you see.
Okay. Monggo, Mbak.
Iya. Saya mau menanggapi saja mengenai komen Kevin tadi. Yang pertama, sebenarnya mungkin dari pertanyaan Andes juga yang probing question ke Kevin mengenai kita takut untuk mengkritik. Mungkin masalahnya bukan di ketakutan untuk mengkritik, tapi kurangnya amunisi atau kurangnya perangkat untuk melakukan kritik tersebut. Dan itu bisa jadi karena adanya kurang wawasan, kurang pengetahuan mungkin, atau kurang banyak hal lain yang tidak menjadi perhatian di luar dari masalah formal. Dan bisa jadi ini mungkin benar masalah pendidikan ya, tapi kalau saya rasa kalau hari ini kita menyalahkan pendidikan sebagai satu-satunya institusi yang bertanggung jawab, itu juga kurang tepat, karena kan kita tahu bahwa hari ini informasi itu bisa kita dapat dengan mudah gitu. Jadi saya rasa memang kita harus menarik perhatiannya. Kalau kita mau membicarakan kritik arsitektur, kita harus menarik perhatiannya tidak lagi berfokus pada formal experiments atau formal aspects, tapi ke hal-hal lain yang justru harusnya lebih kontekstual dan lebih relevan terhadap masalah-masalah kontemporer kita, masalah-masalah kita hari ini. Seperti misalnya global heating. Berapa banyak arsitek yang bicara tentang global heating? Berapa banyak arsitek yang bicara tentang the scarcity of natural resources? Berapa banyak arsitek yang bicara tentang circular economy or sustainable production? Bagaimana supaya apabila satu bangunan tidak lagi bisa digunakan sesuai dengan initial function-nya, dia bisa dicopot pasang misalnya menjadi bentuk atau fungsi yang lain gitu. Itu harusnya sudah mulai dipikirkan sehingga kita tidak menghasilkan lebih banyak sampah produksi daripada yang seharusnya terjadi gitu. Kan kalau kita bilang kalau satu produk termasuk juga arsitektur kemudian menjadi sampah, itu kan kesalahannya adalah kesalahan desain. Kita harus katakan seperti itu. Kesalahan memilih material yang tidak bisa di-recycle, kesalahan memilih konstruksi bangunan, dan sebagainya. Jadi memang perhatiannya harus lebih dilebarkan ke masalah-masalah yang kita hadapi hari ini gitu. Bahkan masalah COVID pun harusnya menjadi pembahasan di dalam arsitektur. Cantilever 10 meter itu bukan masalah kontemporer. Bentuk yang minimalis itu bukan masalah kontemporer gitu. Itu di luar hal-hal yang harusnya menjadi pertimbangan utama pada saat kita mendesain. Air yang kita gunakan dan kemudian kita buang ke saluran kota itu juga harusnya menjadi permasalahan arsitektur. Dan pembicaraannya, kalau kita mau bicara kritik, maka pembicaraannya memang harus ke hal-hal yang relevan terhadap awam, tidak hanya terhadap kalangan arsitek gitu, sehingga kritik kemudian menjadi satu hal yang up to date dan relevan terhadap hidup kita hari ini.
Oke.
Gitu.
Aku coba aku coba summarize ya Mbak ya. Nanti kalau ada yang kurang mohon dikoreksi. Oke.
But I think Kevin can understand.
Okay. So Kevin.
Not very well, I'm afraid. Can you translate for me, please? I'm so sorry. A little bit, but not enough to really respond properly. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you help me, please, Sandesh?
So,
Sorry,
Mbak Vivi, concern mostly is we talked before about the lack of critics and the situations, but she feels that we need to widen our concerns because the lack of critics is not only caused or not mostly
it's not only caused by fear.
By fear, but mostly because of the uninformed or not being well informed in terms of issues other than the formal issues like technicalities or constructions. So as for today, the issues is very urgent. The things about the global warming, about the waste, about how the sustainability of the design itself. So rarely the architects talk about this. As you say, usually architects talk about the style, and the discussion about style is very difficult to get deeper than the skins. So, but Avianti also said to put the blame on the institution or educational system in this open information in the modern gadgets things, I think it's also not quite correct because people already have the freedom to get the information. So I think
Okay.
that, yeah, I think
I understand. I understand where you're coming from, Avianti, but I disagree with you, because look, the average human being, the average architect, does not recently graduate, does not know enough to know what to challenge or what to look for, if they have not been properly guided in school. So I blame two sources. I blame the professional field and I blame the education. Because these are leaders. Education, our teachers and the professionals in any country lead the profession, because they are the ones that all the masses look up to for the journey ahead. And if these professionals behave irresponsibly, they will lead a whole generation of young people to behave irresponsibly too. This is what's happened. Rem Koolhaas is a perfect example of this. Name any famous architect, and we can start critically discussing them, so that we are not creating offense, and we can help everyone understand how people like Rem Koolhaas, Zaha Hadid, Daniel Libeskind, even Peter Zumthor are leading many young architects in the wrong direction through their behavior and through the projects that they advertise and brand and market through the magazines. Yes, which even, I hope Imelda is here, which magazines irresponsibly publish without any critical discourse, engaging the publication of the projects. So I blame the media as well. Imelda, you have to be here. I want to scold you, because we've talked about this many times. And of course, the publishers are afraid of losing the readership, because that's how they make their money. But I'm saying, if you are critical, you will have even more readership. You'll even sell even better. So it is not about the money. It is about fear. So I do disagree with you, Avianti. I think fear governs us all, because when you belong to a network, most of us, when we belong to a herd, we are afraid of the herd cutting us out. We cannot afford to be alone. We need to be with people. So it's only, rare individuals maybe, yeah, that will leave the herd and will try to do their own thing. But it's not common, you see. And so I cannot put the blame on the masses, because the masses don't know what they don't know. Sure, everything's out there, but look at the internet now. There's so much out there, we don't even know what to look for. So we get force-fed through ridiculous sources like social media, Twitter, Facebook, all the Instagram. It's all rubbish. It's all sound bites and blurbs to catch your imagination by an image, by a form, by a style immediately, and then you go, I like, and then you follow. You become a follower. You see, and it's crazy, because you do not know if you can be a leader until you choose not to follow. And it's so brain dead, even in social media, they even call it you follow, and you follow without even knowing you are a mindless animal following. This is crazy. And school education does not teach us how not to follow. It teaches us to copy. When copying, the hallmark of copying in education only happened between the age of 1 to 5 years old. After that, you already know enough not to copy. But we still copy because we think that is acceptable behavior, because we see professionals do it. Yeah? Even Carlos Scarpa copied from ancient Islamic tomb architecture. Yeah, he copied also from Japanese forms and the way they detail things. Yes, on the iconography. And now considered acceptable to even admit that you copy, but you do not use the word copy. You say, I'm inspired by. But we don't know. Inspiration and imitation, they are two totally different things. But we use the word inspiration when actually we should be using the word imitation. Yes? So this is the problem. Language is being used incorrectly, number one. It is being used incorrectly by very influential people. And that language, which we hear as the majority of young impressionable architects, is then treated in the same way that we follow when we imitate the leaders who are themselves imitating other things. So I do blame, I'm sorry, Aviati, I do blame teaching, the curriculum, I do blame educational centers as leaders, and I do blame professionals. They have single-handedly brought us to where we are, and of course, architectural media. Yeah. So,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Please tell me I'm wrong.
Well, we have also email in the audience, so probably it would be directly to have a discussion.
Can I ask a question?
Of course. Who's
oh
this?
ya, Mbak Vivi mungkin ada tambahan dulu, silakan.
Yeah. Could you please elaborate the term fear that you first mentioned as the main problem that prevent the critic in the ecosystem of architecture, because then you kind of shift to other things like to blame, like the media, maybe the capital, the professional, and then the education, of course.
Yeah. I blame the leaders of the field, and by leaders I mean education, media, architectural media, journals, and of course the internet, as well as professionals. And I blame them because whoever they might be, of any of these groups, who might initially have had a different way of thinking, chose not to use their platform to criticize the field because they were afraid of being cut away. Even Glenn Murcutt is afraid to speak up, even though he has got very strong feelings about it. Even he's afraid to speak up because the Pritzker committee is made up by, I'm sorry, a majority of very entitled white American males. And you as a female, and Martha Thorne struggles with this too, if you are female, even if you are white, you are not, your voice is shouted down, especially by people like Frank Gehry, yeah? So it's very governed by people who are able to shout louder than those who have got more important critical things to say. And this is the highest levels of what we call our profession, when actually they're not necessarily the highest levels, they're just the most famous levels. That is how it all filters down to us, you know? So, and everyone then is afraid to speak up because if they choose to, then they get cut out of the network that they belong to. Like whether it's the Aga Khan Awards, which I was once involved in, but I chose to cut myself off because Farooq Darkhshani was pandering to the global scene. The Aga Khan Award used to have value. It doesn't have any more value now. They got in the most ridiculous, famous architects to lead the jury. Yeah, and people who are in a position of influence, Norman Foster, others who have different sorts of ways of looking at it, do not speak up because it's not important enough for them too. They're already famous. They do not want to create an upset in the field by voicing their own sense of what is right and what is wrong. So they're all already, okay, we just let it go. Let the young take over. They can solve the problem. Yeah, this is what the problem is. When you're young enough and you're passionate enough to make the change, you're afraid because you do not have enough of a voice. You're afraid that you will not be taken seriously. When you're old enough to not be afraid, you don't care anymore because you've already become famous. And we don't need to talk about it anymore, or maybe they're ignorant. A combination of both maybe, yeah? But this is the biggest problem in the world, that we need to feel like we belong somewhere. I mean, I don't, you know, that's why I can speak this way. That's why I'm even not from Indonesia in a discourse which involves more Indonesians. Because if an Indonesian were involved talking like this, they would be cut out from the network. But I don't care. I mean, I don't even care in Malaysia. Yeah? but so this is what is vital, that we stop being afraid of speaking and asking questions, even if they're difficult questions. If we disagree with something, like all the wonderful things that a lot of Indonesia Fields has done in Bandung by the mayor, Ridwan Kamil, most of them are actually very bad for Bandung. But we don't talk about this. They only successful, I think, because everyone goes there and they look good. But we don't talk about the traffic jams that it creates. We don't talk about the viral tourism that it creates. We don't talk about the people living around those projects that have created viral tourism and whether they're affected by these projects. We don't talk about this. Why? Because, we don't, and pardon me, maybe he's here too. Maybe we should talk with him, yes? Maybe he believes he's doing the right thing. But if he doesn't know, no one has criticized it, how can he know, yeah? No one is perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. The worst thing is not to speak out if you know a mistake is being made and you do not create the discourse, yeah? So does it make any sense, Avianti?
So yeah, but Vivi, do you have something in response, or would you like to add something?
I think it's no, maybe later, but I think it's better to let the other participants to be involved in this.
Okay.
So it won't be just two people hitting each other.
Okay, so just a little bit before I will let Mbak Email to join the conversation also. You said that probably even it is more hesitate or even harder to critique a friend. And this is also happened in the fan-based architect, like the more celebrities architect, the more fan base he made, it creating something like a cult. So your idols are always right, but then also others probably always wrong. So I would like to ask Mbak Email if Mbak Email ada di audience. Halo Mbak. Halo Mbak Email.
Hi, Imelda.
Hey, hello.
Halo Mbak Email.
Hi,
Asik.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you again.
Long time no see.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So Kevin, you have something that you would like to ask to Mbak Email before, so probably we can.
Yes, I've spoken to Imelda directly, so I know that I'm not talking behind her back. My question is, Imelda, why do you not accompany your publications with more critique, which actually criticizes the projects rather than just praise them? Why don't you make it an honor for someone to be featured in your magazine rather than anyone, like Art Daily, anyone can participate as long as it looks different. No discussion about whether it's a good building, whether the people, the community actually appreciate the project, yeah? So this is what frustrates me, because you have a wonderful platform to create this discourse, but you're not choosing it. You're choosing the popular route instead to make everyone happy. When everyone is happy, no one learns, yeah? Sorry to get a war horse, but you have a responsibility. You must use it. Do not protect your reputation. Your reputation means nothing if you do not serve responsibly as one of the most prominent publishers in Indonesia.
Okay, so Mbak Email, feel free to respond, or mau dalam bahasa Indonesia boleh atau bahasa Inggris?
Yes.
Kevin, I
Yes.
did make you unhappy, right?
No, you did not make it happen. Like, you made me unhappy only because you have not taken up the challenge. Your publication is like any other architectural publication in the world. And its influence, it's cut and pasted from Europe. They're the most ridiculous publications in the world. And Japan, GA, and all the publications are rubbish. They only take sexy photographs. They don't they don't have understanding of people and whether the architecture creates new relationships of human beings. It's only about form, yeah, materials.
Okay, can I ask you something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember when we did make you unhappy?
Yeah, when I asked you to start doing more critical publication, and you said, Kevin,
No. When
so it's quite often.
No, when we wrote article based from roundtable discussion, and you got warning from the institution.
Oh, not only did I get a warning, they threatened to sue me.
Nah.
So I said, go ahead and try to sue me. I'm a private citizen, You can't sue me when your own professionals are behaving less responsibly than I am.
So
And
that's
it's true
dangerous,
that
right?
architects are doing horrible work.
You made my staff really panic at that time, and she tried to hear again what you say
But
at
that issue
roundtable
sold the most
discussion.
copies, right?
Okay. Anyway, it's not easy. it's not easy, especially in the Indonesian culture, and also I found in Southeast Asia.
It's easier than you think. You just haven't tried. I insist that you haven't tried.
Kevin.
Sorry, I'm gonna
Sorry,
use my
Kevin.
big hammer tonight. No?
I'm sorry, Kevin. I need to let by email to.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry. So
Yeah.
go, Mbak.
For printing publication is not easy because it's a lot of capital there. So if something happens, it's really dangerous. So I think it's gonna be easier if we use, and I will consider to try it if we use the maybe digital version. But I think if about critic writing, I think Avianti Arman much better to do, and I waiting for her writing to my magazine.
No, fantastic. You should create a special section for Avianti. Every publication, she will have a critical section that she can write on, you know, and be completely uncensored. And then we can see whether Avianti is afraid also or not. Avianti, take the challenge.
Okay.
And I can contribute too, you know, but you've never asked me to because I think you're afraid that someone will sue the magazine, you know. You know, I think your magazine will be very respected. Your journal will be very respected if you do the one thing that the Europeans, the Japanese, and Americans are too scared to do because they're too scared of being sued. Even Australia, same thing. They're all cowards in a way, you know. None of them are using their position to the platform to really change the profession into a more critical state.
So I would like to elaborate more the response from my email. My email said it is not easy to do the thing that you propose. So by email, probably you could elaborate more on what is the challenge or what is the factors, the main factors that make it so difficult to become vocal or critics in architecture design in Indonesia. So by email?
Because our source, the project owner and also the architect do not like to read about the other side of the project.
The dark side, you mean? The dirty
the other side. Not,
the other side.
I mean,
okay.
Yeah, the other side, not the good thing or whatever Kevin already mentioned before.
Okay.
And we did have experience, and we did, and somebody did sue me, Kevin, and it's not easy. And then usually, and we also experience some of them avoid us after that. And then I try to raise critic, but not directly. If you read some of the article of project review, we raise question instead of saying directly. Usually at the end we raise question. That's so far what we can do.
So that's what your fear is, right? It's a lawsuit.
Yes,
and
we did.
Right?
Yes,
okay.
We are. We quite scared about it.
What if
Honestly,
for every lawsuit you receive, you make it known to the group that Randy is heading, you know, Rabung Mada, yeah?
Rabung Mada.
And we will crowdsource and crowdfund your fee for the lawsuit, and we will shame the person. No, seriously, we shame the person who's suing you. No architect should be allowed to sue because that is shameful. We learn the most from critique. We should not be allowed to sue, and we shame the person. You know, as a group, then the person understands, oh, the network is against me, and then they shut the hell up. No one should be allowed to sue. You know, I think we should all live in wonderful freedom to criticize and receive criticism. I learn the most when my work is criticized. I'm sick and tired of hearing praise. I don't learn anything. I know what I'm doing right. I do not know what I'm doing wrong. And this is the biggest problem with architects, not just in Indonesia, in Australia as well. Someone, a teacher wrote a critique about a museum, that was completely air conditioned, but the form had the form of the Queenslander house, which is an open veranda, supposed to be for cross ventilation. But the building was completely hermetically sealed. She wrote a critique about it, and she got sued by the architects. In a country as supposedly open-minded as Australia, yeah. So this is not a problem only in Indonesia, but if we can crowdfund and source your fees for the lawsuit, and we shame the suer, we will create a new environment where you do not need to be afraid. I believe this can work, yeah.
So Randy is also here, I believe. So
Yes.
Randy, I think that's a challenge.
Yes, Randy.
Randy, are you in the crowd, Randy?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, so that's a challenge that Kevin proposed. But back to Mbak Imel, do you have anything to add more?
I think I have something to add.
Okay. Ya. Monggo, Mbak.
Okay. Well, I see it as a cycle. It's actually a very bad cycle, because if we are talking about publication, the critics materials have only small audience. So if you have a publication, you are talking numbers. I mean, if you have only small audience, then you will have to lose a lot of money, because you won't get people to buy your books. And if we're talking about the architecture profession, architecture is a client-oriented profession. So, and the client's taste or interest dictated by medias. So what architects do in his or her profession, following what the media said. But if media don't sell something that people like to see, then they won't have the readers. They cannot sell the books that they have printed or published. And I think it happened in every industry. If you're talking about some capital, some money, then it happened in every industry, in fashion, in furniture, in other mobility industry. And the main factor is economic scale. If you don't reach a certain economic scale, then it's so difficult to make a change. Only a radical, but the radical change can only happen if something huge or something big happened, like maybe this
Crisis.
This crisis or crisis. So yeah, despite of that, what happened to us right now is a very bad thing, this coronavirus or this pandemic. I do hope that this can make a shift in our mind, how to rethink the way we produce something. We produce things that we just take it for granted right now.
Oh, okay, Imelda, I've got a suggestion, Imelda. What I'm proposing is that you do not change your entire format of how you publish your journal. Of course, I do not want you to go bankrupt, but what if you just had one section, which you go, I don't know what you want to call it, the critical corner, whatever, yeah? And that one section features one project that the architect has agreed, let's critique it in any way you want, no problems. And it's just one section, so the rest will be still, of the pages will be still filled with glossy, very happy things that everyone loves and everyone prostitutes themselves for. But that one section is critical. So you start a kind of a theme, you see, for just one section of your whole journal. So we're not ruining your entire journal. We're just taking one part aside that goes, okay, all the fun and games is over. This one section is the meat. For those of you who want to engage critical discourse. The rest of you want to look pretty pictures, fancy muscles, big breasts and long legs, you go and look at the rest of the magazine. But this one, you get serious education. How about that?
But
yeah?
Yes. If the whole content of the magazines are about the big boobs and long legs, and on the small corner, then you criticize what you just pictures on the whole pages. won't that be absurd? I mean, you have that you have two contradictory materials in the same publication.
Oh, but you already have many contradictory things in the publication. Some works are horrible. Some works are reasonably good. Yeah, and very rarely there's one work that's excellent. Yeah, but so you already have contradictory things. I think the whole idea of a journal or a newspaper is that you present very, very different viewpoints and let the audience understand that it is a very big world out there. You don't only have all the pretty things. Yes, this is silly. Why don't you, in just one section? I'm not saying the whole thing now, yeah?
So,
would that be okay?
So, Kevin, Mbak Vivi, and Mbak Email, I think...
Okay, I just add one word.
Okay, so after Mbak Email, I'm going to ask the other participant who also would like to ask some question to join the conversation. But first,
Yes,
Mbak
and
Email.
answer what Kevin idea. I 200% agree. And can I start from your project?
I offered it to you 2 years ago.
Okay.
You didn't.
Okay, so it's open.
Don't be a hypocrite right now. Okay, pretend that I'll be the first one to participate.
Okay, excellent deal.
Okay, so
I'll do
that's
it.
excellent. That's a good news.
Okay.
So, there are so many questions popping up, but first I'm going to let the one who first raised hands. That would be, just a minute. Minute. Sorry, because there's so many questions popping up. So Indra Prasasto, Indra, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to be quick again. Okay, we met yesterday.
Hi. Yeah, from last night. I remember you.
Yeah,
Indra.
last night. Yeah. Okay. On the one hand, I think like a lot of like the questions were answered, from the conversation between you, Mbak Vivi, and Mbak Imelda. But I think like one of the I can only talk about, because we were talking about like issues why criticism in Indonesia and our Indonesian architecture might not have, there hasn't been a lot in a way. And I think one of like the biggest issues is the lack of literacy level, I think, at least. And of course that goes, and I can only speak to like in Indonesia. I think that it's like a lot of failure in the Indonesian education, and I think I've heard it like a couple of weeks ago. It's not about the fact that the people cannot read, but it's also the fact that after a certain only a smaller percentage of Indonesian actually can understand what they read in a deep way. So, and it also creates I feel like a pessimism in the lack of discourse. And what I mean by that is that a lot of people show discourse online nowadays. You're one of the ones who write through Facebook, and I've also seen Mbak Fifi's kind of like post through Facebook, but also a lot of like discourse, at least in the social media, we can start to see how unproductive it is, and I feel like that productivity of like interaction of communication between kind of like ideas is very frustrating, and it really kind of like hinders a lot of people. Like, maybe I just don't want to say anything because it's just gonna like lead to bad kind of like discourse, I want to say. But and I think it also is very much connected to that kind of fear of being sued in a way. And I don't know if you know, but like at least in Indonesia, at least for a couple of years, you have like this UU ITE, which is like if you can be proven that you are smearing someone, which is in a way critique can be kind of like can be kind of like bent into like, oh, you're smearing my name, that you can be sued in that way. And not saying that smearing someone is a good thing, but in Indonesia is that people who are less privileged, people who actually don't have the means to fight back through the law, are actually the ones who are suffering, whereas people who are privileged enough, they can get away with pretty much anything. And of course, and I think like that's why like your conversation about pretty much architects unionizing like against this kind of like laws is one of the things that we should do in a way. another thing that I want to add is I think like Mbak Fifi in one of her initial comments was saying that pretty much knowledge, there is a lot of knowledge going around, but getting more knowledge is more nowadays more and more of a choice, in that we are living in a sea of information. I think it's very hard for us to know which ones we should like put our time into kind of like broaden our image. And I do agree with you. We lack the kind of like the critical knowledge to both criticize and also kind of like to think about like architecture in a more critical way, in a more in-depth, and less about just space and form, but more about like what it's actually conveying, the social political kind of like issues that is actually I want to say embedded, but you can actually see in the built environment. We not only did like the education kind of like system kind of steer us away from that, but we also kind of like we're kind of striving to kind of like understand it ourselves in this kind of like see information. And of course like this type of like information is forum is one of the things that are helping. So I guess those are like the two things that I would add.
Indra, so Kevin, do you have
can I summarize I think what I think I'm thinking when you are telling me what you said? I think this is the problem. The biggest problem is this. Whenever we are afraid to criticize for the one primary reason is because our criticism is made up of an opinion or a viewpoint. You cannot critique based on opinion or viewpoint, because an opinion or viewpoint is singular. Let me explain. Yeah, this is a handphone. Yeah, now this is your viewpoint. Okay, that's your opinion. I do not have the same viewpoint. My viewpoint is from behind. Yeah. Someone over there, this is their viewpoint. Their viewpoint is different from yours. This is another viewpoint on this side. This is a viewpoint from the top. And we've not even gotten a point where you press this and something happens. Yeah. So the problem with criticism is we do not know how to criticize, because when we criticize, it is based on our viewpoint. Because we do not talk about any other viewpoints. We only talk about our viewpoint. Correct criticism is not about one viewpoint or two viewpoints. It is about the relationship between viewpoints. If you are criticizing based on an opinion or a viewpoint, you are making a bad mistake. And that's why sometimes our criticisms go wrong and they're not understood. And then you get sued because your criticism is about your viewpoint, your opinion. But I don't care about your opinion. I don't give a shit about my opinion either. I only care when I'm able to talk about this viewpoint and how it relates to this viewpoint, and how this viewpoint relates to this viewpoint, and how this viewpoint relates, or this edge relates to that viewpoint. That's the relationship, yeah? And after that, we need to look at all the different relationships to understand what this is. Only then can you really begin to present criticism, when you talk about relationships, not about viewpoints or opinions. That's why no matter how many threats of lawsuits I've got, I've never been sued, because I am speaking the truth. I speak about the relationship. And when people read that, they may hate it, they may not like it, but they can't say, well, this is not accurate, yeah? Because I'm not talking about my opinion. My opinion means nothing. I'll talk about, okay, you have designed a beautiful project, but it is badly cited. It's badly cited because the people around it did not ask for it. You came in from outside and you put your project there. What right do you have to say it should be in that place, when you did not even talk with the people and what they needed or what they wanted, because they are the actual community, even though you call it a community library. Hello? You call it a community library, but when the community actually say we want a library. This is the big problem. We say that, oh, opinion, viewpoint. No. Let's talk about relationship. And you can only talk about relationships when you talk about context. Yeah? The relationship of this means nothing without the context of your thumb, because your thumb always goes to the home button, yeah? And then the finger, the pointer, because it's how you navigate this thing, yes? So it's about context. You cannot talk about critique if you talk only about opinion. So this is the most important thing. And we have not been taught in school and by the leaders of creativity and education about what the discussion of relationships involves. We only thought about, oh, this ini dia punya view, this is their viewpoint, this is my viewpoint, this is your viewpoint. We are all equal, because I cannot disagree with your viewpoint. Your viewpoint is your viewpoint. How can I say you're wrong? So, but you also cannot say I'm wrong. But you can say certain viewpoints are prioritized over others when you start talking about the relationships. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is the biggest problem with architectural and any kind of criticism. We do not talk about relationships. We just push our viewpoint. And this is not the right way to critique, because a viewpoint can be treated with disrespect. It doesn't mean anything. It's just one. Relationships are multiple. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
And does it also make it worse to push it into something like try to convert other people's opinion to our perspective? Like people try to change others, which is never successful in social media, but it happens. Like one opinion tried.
No, it's perfectly okay if you're not trying to change someone's opinion to your opinion. It's wrong if you're trying to change someone's opinion to your opinion. But it's not wrong if you're helping them change their opinion to understand a relationship. It's like this. I'm not important. Neither one of you, how many of you are here right now? There are 200 people.
There are 286 people.
None of us are important, because if I'm here and none of you are here, nothing is happening. If you are here and I'm not here, maybe a lot of things are not happening too. If Indra was not here, this discussion would also not be happening. If Andesh did not organize this, so the only reason why this is important right now is the space between us. Your ears, my ears, your voice, my voice. It is a relationship, yeah? Now, each one of us is like an opinion. It means nothing. I mean nothing without you. I mean nothing without Shubra. I mean nothing without Imelda. I mean nothing without Imelda. I mean nothing without Avianti. Now, it's very complex. There are 280 people right now here. So not everyone is discussing and not everyone is talking right now. More people are listening than talking. But whatever is happening is still about the space between us. It is still about a relationship. And that is what we've got to understand. Yes? The relationship is what important, not a singular viewpoint. Yeah? Okay, sorry, I
so,
on too long.
adding to something that Indra said before, and I would like to make it bold. Is there any privilege to somehow in criticism? Like, does a person have more privilege to criticize the others, or does the privilege exist?
The privilege is not, it is not, you're not born with the privilege unless you have already been born with critical ability. And when I say critical ability, I mean the ability to understand relationships. And not many people are able to, because we live in a global culture where relationships are not important. The self, the individual, is more important than a relationship. That the opinion, the viral opinion, the viewpoint is more important than a relationship. That individual buildings in a city, your house, your bungalow, your tower is more important than how it relates to the rest of the city. We don't care about the space in between. We don't care about what you have to say. I only want to say what I want to say. You know, this is the world we live in. And that's why this is a bad way. Yeah. It only means something. The privilege only can be earned if you're able to discuss relationships and not only your mere opinion. So,
yeah,
so,
I think
so on the one hand, there's one opinion that the journal, architectural journal, it needs to sell. So you need to publish popular, happy things in it. That is only a viewpoint. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm saying you can still have the magazine which sells, but one small section, you have something that's critical. That is a relationship. You understand? I'm not saying that Imelda's viewpoint is wrong. I'm just saying she has not considered many other multiple viewpoints that the magazine can still sell well under. You get what I mean? I'm not telling her, change your whole journal to nothing but criticism. No, I'm not saying that. Yeah, so it's a relationship I'm trying to get her to engage. Yeah, okay, sorry.
So, have to went along, probably do not worry if your question is not being answered right now, but we still have a long time to go. So I would like to also choose questions from the chat room from Kartik Pan, how to differentiate a copy from an inspiration? Is there something deeper that needs to be looked in order to recognize that it is a copy, not an inspiration? This is also related with the thing that you said in the previous presentations and in many meetings about the copy paste process, which is happen all over the world.
Yes.
And how to differentiate a copy from inspiration, or does this copy paste behavior also have relation with critics today?
I see. You can only be inspired if you are inspired by content, and content has no form. It's intangible. Yeah. What we call inspiration is copying, is potong tampal or cut and paste, because we are inspired by form. When you are inspired by another form, you can only imitate that form. So you can say, for my airport, I was inspired by flight, by a bird. So my airport looks like a bird. Yeah. Or Zaha Hadid, the Guangzhou Opera House was inspired by pearls on the Pearl River Delta. So our opera house looks like a bloody pebble, but it's 500 times bigger than a pebble. Yeah. So the problem with being inspired by form is you can only imitate that form. Woha said they were inspired by Carlos Capa when they did the hotel, the Alila in Bali. And inspired? No, hello. You just imitated all the same details that Carlos Capa did, all the crenellations and the ziggurat pattern. Yeah, this is not inspiration; it's imitation. Yeah, the same way Carlos Capa said he was inspired by Japanese and Islamic funerary architecture. He was not inspired; he imitated it. The Arco Selaam, the arch. It's not an arch, it's just a form. He imitated from the original ancient Arco Solea that was part of Italian heritage. So when we use the word incorrectly, we are not inspired. We cannot be inspired by form. If you're inspired by form, you merely imitate that form. That's not inspiration. That's the lowest form of cut and paste. Even biomimicry. Mimicry, it's imitation. It's wrong. It's stupid. Unless you think about the process of biomimicry. What is it you're trying to be inspired by? Not the shape of the leaf, not the form of the anthill, but the process of osmosis. What is osmosis or transpiration? And that process you apply in your work, that is inspiration. And it looks nothing like a leaf. A lot of biomimicry looks green, you know. And it's they say it's osmosis, but it looks like a flower, it looks like a plant, it looks like an elephant, it looks like a bloody bird or whatever, yeah? This is not true inspiration. So there's a big difference, yeah? Cut and paste only happens when you are only looking at form. So a lot of architects, a lot of young architects, they go traveling around the world. Even Ando, yeah? When he went to Europe and he traveled there, and he felt inspired by Corbusier. He was not inspired. He imitated a lot of Corbusier back when he went back to Japan, except that concrete is harder to make brute in Japan than it is in Europe. So his concrete became to look cleaner, and that became identified as the Ando look. And then a whole legion of Japanese architects started imitating from that style. This is crazy, you know? So to boil it down, cut and paste, potong tampal, cut and paste, can only happen when you look at form or style. And when you look at process, which is no form, it's not completely intangible, that's only when you can be inspired. And that will help drive your form in a different way.
So this is also related with, usually in Indonesia, young architects, my generations or younger generation, usually went abroad to foreign countries, usually Japan, and they are highly influenced by the architectures that happen in Japan. But also, a few years later, a lot of forms in Indonesia, contemporary architectures, look like Japanese modern architectures. So is this the thing that you said before about the cut and paste in terms of forms without having a deeper deeper materials.
Absolutely. You know, look, don't worry about the Indonesian architect cut and pasting from Japan. Even the Japanese architects cut and paste from Japan. They do not understand the deepest inspirations of what Japan is all about. You know, there's this thing called wabi-sabi in Japan.
The wabi-sabi.
And the wabi-sabi is derived from the ancient spirituality called Shinto. Shintoism is not a religion; it's a sensibility. It's like Buddhism. It's like a way of living. Yeah, and Shinto is all about letting things be what they are. So it's very related to the Japanese poem, the haiku. Yeah, it's a 5-line poem, and it's only supposed to describe what something is. It does not try to be poetic. So, for example, the leaf fell from a tree. This is like 1 line of a haiku, maybe. You're not trying to make it poetic. You're only describing the leaf falling from a tree. And everything about the ancient way of living in Japan was very, very natural because they used materials and they built with a craftsmanship which allowed natural aging to happen on the buildings. So even after many decades, the old Minka houses do not need any renovation. Yeah, and then along came Tada Ando and created all this concrete stuff, and then everything became white, concrete, glass, and steel, which has got nothing to do with the deepest inspirations of Japanese content, of how the Japanese actually live with nature and without having to avoid it, you know. Everything became white. Everything became clinical. There was this crazy thing that after Shinohara, who is an old Japanese architect, that was propagated by the postmodern Japanese architects. Yeah, we can name them if you want, but then it just ballooned into a whole series of reaction to that. Then the next generation of Japanese, they did not like postmodernism, so they created another form that was not like postmodernism. And now in Japan, everything which is made of tiny sticks, painted white with glass, and you can see every naked human being inside the house is considered Japanese. It's exotic. And Europe loves that. So they get published in all these fancy journals without any critique about it. And we know the one of the most prominent flag bearers is what's his name? I forget. Everything is flimsy, you know, and everything is glass. You can see everything inside, you know, and that qualifies then as Japanese architecture. No, this is not right. Or folded planes, you know. And then at some point there was the Kengokuma craze where everything is made of timber, very, very put together in vertical lines, yeah, with small gaps. And this has been adopted by Indonesian architects. So it's crazy, you know, that we only look at the form of the material and the pattern that they create, and then we recede to pattern making. This is crazy. It's not architecture. This is styling, yeah? How things look.
But the visual have a stronger impact and form in terms of visual finally have a stronger impact on most architects. But how does this relate with because I think it's the slower process to fully understand what's deeper than the skins, right? So how to avoid this? How to avoid that the copy-paste process?
Okay, to think about the skin, the reason why buildings look so cool and keren and unusual, actually not right, they're all looking very similar in Indonesia, is because everyone wants to belong to a certain aesthetic trend, yeah? So a lot of vertical pieces, sometimes at the batu, concrete, you know, all that. But we do not, we ask what it looks like, but we don't ask what is it for, yeah? In Indonesia, we have very similar climates. The skin is to provide security, number one. It's to provide protection so that when it's raining very heavily or the sun is very warm, that you do not have it coming inside the room. But it is also to allow a lot of natural air to go through. But behind all that vertical, usually it's glass and the whole room is air conditioned. And the worst thing, on the opposite side of the room, there's no opening window because we don't ask the question, what creates wind to move? Wind can only move into a room if it can go out of that room. And if it's going into the room in one window, it cannot come out from the same window. It must come out from a different window on the opposite side. It's about pressure differential. Wind Air can only move when there is low pressure and high pressure. Wind will always move from high pressure to low pressure. Low pressure is created when it's hot. The air will rise. When the air rises, it creates low pressure. And when the air rises, new air must come to take the place of the old air because there's nothing there. Cool air is very heavy. It's very dense. It sinks. So cool air will always take the place of hot air rising. Cool air is high pressure, it's a high pressure. Warm air is low pressure. But we do not understand this principle. And because of that, window boleh open, cukup. But window on the opposite side of room, tak ada. Because we don't understand the principle of cross-ventilation. Because a lot of architects think, building naturally ventilated is enough, cukup. It is not enough. Anything which is not naturally ventilated is not only illegal by law, it is uninhabitable by fact. You should not even put a dog inside. It will die, yeah? So we should stop talking about natural ventilation like it's the most important thing in the world. It is not a virtue. It is a fact of life. You need it. The gold standard is cross ventilation. Yeah, satu bilik, angin masuk air one room, air comes in one way, it must go out the other side. Air cannot go in here and come back out the same way. It does not work that way. But we don't understand this. So the elevation here, elevation here, elevation here, all look the same because we want our building to look really cool and Karen, so elevations all the same everywhere. Yes, but there's no reason why the elevation should be the same everywhere. Because an elevation which protects a gate, which has a road, a front street here, is different from an elevation which has got a garden behind. So we treat the elevations differently based on how we want air to move, where we require more privacy, where we do not require privacy, where we want a lot of openness, where we want a lot of solidity because that is the west sun. West sun is very hot, banyak panas. And we want to protect the room, the bedroom from the heat. So maybe we put the staircase on the west because a staircase, you do not live in a staircase. You only walk up temporarily. It can be warm for a moment, it's okay. Or maybe a storeroom, you're not in a storeroom most of the time. And a warmer storeroom is actually drier. Warm heat reduces humidity, so you can store things there with no safety. How many houses in Indonesia are designed with the storeroom to the west? We do not ask this question because we don't care. The storeroom can be anywhere as long as it's not in the living room, in the middle of the living room. We do not ask these questions because we don't care. We only care about how the building looks outside. Yeah. So everything else inside, not only inside, everything else outside is also potong tapal. What we've seen works, successful, part of the network. Okay, we can follow that trend. Yeah. It's like that one former architect from Indonesian practice who was asking us, how can I start my own practice and avoid the style of the company that I used to work for? Because this is a trap, he said, that many of the same people working in the firm fall prey to. Yeah, they become victims of this trap because that's all we know is the look. We don't understand the principles of what is really important in a house. Should a master bedroom, have a big window with the best view? No, because you're sleeping in the bedroom. And after the first month, you'll never look at the view again. You wake up too early to go to work, you come back too late and it's all dark. And during the weekend, when you have the time, the curtains are shut because you want to sleep until 11 o'clock in the morning. So the bedroom is the worst room to have a good view. The view should be kept for the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, the spaces which the whole family shares. How many houses are designed with the best view for the living room? And how many prioritize still the view for the bedroom? Because the master bedroom especially, because it's so important. Oh,
because the money came from him.
And then selalu curtains are closed, yeah?
So is this also the reason why the fact that all of the houses, most of the houses that are being built by the architects have variety of forms, but repeating the same mistakes or the same, or still maintaining the same problem as the previous one? Like we talk about the service room, who is very small, uninhabitable mostly in many houses, or in the carport or garage who have taken a third of the house. So is this also the thing related with that issues?
It's completely related, you see, because when you care about the look of the house, you will try to make it always look different. You put all your attention and your passion and your effort to make the house look different and craft it in a way which you think is unique to you. But you know what? Everyone is also different. You are the same. But when you go inside, the bedrooms all look the same. They all look really cool. They all look very fashionable. They look like they can be published in a magazine, but they do not function well for proper living, for the way we actually live as human beings. The bedrooms are very, very open. They are very, very special looking. The living rooms are always, and we treat the maids the same. The maids' room, in the expensive houses, they are given the worst spaces. They have the least ventilation, the worst daylight, because we don't ask the question. If you give a horrible living condition to someone who does work, their work will produce the same as the environment they're in. The work that they produce will be exactly about the environment that they are living in. But if you treat the maid like your family, you give them as good a room as you would give to yourself, can you imagine how wonderful they will treat you? But we don't think of this. The maids are always in the worst part of the house. This is wrong. Every maid's room should have cross ventilation too, or at least a wonderful big window. Yes? But we never think of this because they're only a maid. Hey, hello, that maid is someone's mother. What if it's your mother? Would you treat the maid any differently? Yeah? So architects, we speak so eloquently about taking walls down between people. Yeah? And then we build even more walls between people by the way we treat our maids. Oh, itu orang pekerja. He's a cleaner of a toilet. We don't have to treat him well. He's someone's father. Would you design the drain any differently if you knew your father was cleaning that drain? But we don't ask these questions because it's not about how the drain is clean. It is how the drain looks. So our drain looks damn good. But it's impossible to build and it's disgusting to clean. Yeah? We don't ask important questions. It's all about how it looks.
So this is also related with one question on chat from Olivia Emanuela. She said, what is the best possible way to bridge the urge to pursue this critical mindset to a broader audience beyond us architects, designers? Considering that in the end, it's a very client-based oriented field, at least in practice. Take note as well that most of our governments do not really understand all these things as well, while they are the one that is most influential in forming our society and built environment. So do you have any ideas?
It's actually the reverse, you know. You will know, all of you who are already practicing architects, maybe running your own firm, whenever you try to convince a client and they do not like your idea, the reason is not because you're talking about content. The reason is because you're talking about your form, your own personal vision of beauty. They might not share the same opinion. Form is about opinion. You like black, I like white. Who's right and who's wrong? Who cares? You like vertical thin timber. I like a blank wall. Who is right and who's wrong? Who cares? It is not important. You can only win an argument with a client when you are not talking about form, but you are talking about content. When you say, I'm treating this elevation like this because I'm giving you a privacy, people can't see it, but the wind can go through, and I'm treating the other elevation differently because when you open that, the wind can really come out. I am giving you a better maid's room because the maid is not a maid. She is a member of the family. And if you treat her well, for selfish reasons, she will treat you even better. What client will argue with that? Oh, the maid's room is too big. No, it's not. It's a perfect size because she will love that room, and anything she loves will reflect in the way she lives and the way she works. You will have a wonderful maid. What client will argue with that? You tell a client, I want to use this marble from the planet Jupiter. Oh, how much does it cost? Oh, 100,000 ringgit a square foot, 100,000 rupiah a square foot. They'll tell you to go to hell. But you tell them, I want to use this material. You may not like the look of it, but it will save a lot of money for these wonderful kitchen that we will make you want to go to cook in every day. What client is going to argue with that? These are all about relationships. They are about content. They're not about form. We're not talking about what the kitchen looks like. We're just saying, we will design you a fantastic kitchen with the money we save from not using marble. If the client insists on you, sorry, go on.
Yeah, so actually there's a logic, there's a simple logic in that argument actually.
Yes.
Like,
do not try to
logic.
explain your vision of the form. Oh, I'm going to use this special timber like this, and this wall is concrete with a little hole in it, and the lines to resemble the passing of time and your relationship with your wife. They don't care about these things. The roof is like a butterfly, it can fly, and it's floating because there's glass and underneath, and the concrete, the roof will look very thin and it will look very special. Who cares? Okay, if you're doing other things also, maybe it'll look nice. But looking nice is not the client's, clients believe that's the most important thing to them, but it is actually the least important thing to them. Because they're nice, your nice may not be their nice. So if you try to win an argument talking about what is nice in the looks, you will not win the job, the project, the commission. But if you can discuss what is really necessary, the kitchen is the most important room of the house. No one can argue. Yeah, the living room where the children are, the family can gather. The children bedroom, you do not get big bedrooms for your children. When they grow up, they will not be so spoiled. They can earn their own money and they can build their own castle. Now, they will just have a small room. They will share the bathroom because they are both the same sex. It's okay. They can share the bathroom. They will grow up to be balanced children. When they grow older, they can go and build their own castle. But your bedroom, as the owner, that will be the biggest room. So when you make a small children's bedroom, they will be encouraged not to spend time in it. They will be encouraged to go outside to where the family is. What family will not argue, can argue with you about that? They want their children to grow up well. They do not want their children to grow up spoiled either. Yeah. So it's about arguing about these common things which everyone understands as a relationship they want. They do not want their children to be stuck inside this big room that is only their room playing with their computer. They want a relationship with their children. So they want their children to spend more time outside of the bedroom. You see? So when you can argue or present an argument in this way, in the way of relationships, any client will not argue with you. They will say, my God, you're a damn good architect, yeah?
So, and also I think it reminds me a bit with a senior architect who have a simple form pattern, and it usually being used in many of his projects is Tan Chang Ai, who have a standard of like floor to ceiling are always be at the same height because it's functional, and the size of the bedroom also have the same size because it's also functional and it makes sense. So
well, it depends though, some people spend a lot of time in their bedroom, the people who own a house, and then you do not want a tiny bedroom then, maybe it's going to be a bit bigger. Some couples only sleep in the bedroom, no TV, nothing, it can be very small, it's only to sleep. So there's some adjustment that you need to make as well. It's not just about what you know as an expert, but also how you respond to your client's specific needs. Some clients, the husband and wife, they don't sleep together. They must have separate bedrooms. And then one additional bedroom where they will come together whenever they want to make love. That has to be adjusted too. Maybe you do not want to take on a job like that. I don't know. And even then you can say, no, I'm not going to give you 3 bedrooms. I'm only going to give you 2. When you want to come together, some nights you go to her bedroom. Other nights she comes to your bedroom. Then you save space. And they would like that too, yeah? So it's about being able to present the argument intelligently so that you achieve your goals and you achieve their needs. Everything is about negotiation. It's how well you are able to make that negotiation work with a form. Because at the end of the day, we do not want ugly buildings. Of course we don't. But we can't avoid ugliness. We can't avoid beauty. All of us will naturally, immediately want to do something beautiful. But to keep on focusing on it then is silly because we already know we want it to be beautiful. It's more important to focus on the relationships, the things we are not so good at. Yeah.
Okay. So I would like to invite our friend as well, Setiadi Sopandi, we knew as Jungs, that would like to say some questions. Jungs, hello? Are you in the crowd, Jungs, or already
He's left. Poor
He's
guy.
left already?
Sorry.
Okay. So Chung said in chat room is criticism should begin with a problem, a real one. It can be an imaginary problem, but it better be convincing. Do you want to
Sorry,
respond?
what is it again? Sorry.
Criticism should begin with a problem, a real one. It can be an imaginary problem, but it better be convincing. He said
I don't completely agree with that, because a problem could also be an opinion. A problem could only be one viewpoint. A true problem is about a relationship. So if that problem is about a relationship, then I agree. Yes, that it is then about a criticism, a good criticism. But it has to start with the relationship first, and then
Is it because impossible to find any common or agreement between different perspective or different opinions?
Yes, because like I said, if this is your viewpoint, and I'm not looking at your viewpoint, I'm looking at my viewpoint, we cannot agree. It's silly to have an argument.
It will create a useless argument then.
It is silly to have an argument about a handphone when you're only looking at it from one side. You can only understand, have discussion or criticism about handphone when you can look at it all the way and understand the relationships, yeah?
And then it creates
this is multiple viewpoints. There's so many viewpoints, it's incredible. But how many of us actually bother to do all this before we start engaging in discourse? No, we just want to look at one. Oh, this is my viewpoint. I want to talk about it. This is silly, yeah?
So, yep, Kamil have something to say, I believe. Yes, Kamil Muhammad is also here.
Been a long time coming.
Kamil, I see you somewhere.
He's left also.
Yeah, he said that he's going to left, but he said that there is also the question of articulations. Kevin's beginning's position of many simply unable saying I don't understand should open up how critics are made and conducted. That's what he said. So probably later on, Kamil will join again. But also in the room, I see Pak Apep, Pak Ahmad Tardiana. Pak Apep masih ada di grup kah? Halo Pak Apep. He joined previously.
He was, yeah, earlier I saw.
Yeah, I saw the icon. Okay, so Kamil or Pak Apep, if you rejoin again the meeting, feel free to ask the questions or put it on the chat room.
Oh, you muted Chung. That's why Chung could not speak.
Really?
Yeah. You
okay,
muted
so
him.
Habibi could. Hello, Habibi. Halo.
Hi, Arnanto. Sorry.
Ya, so Chung sudah bisa bicara kah? Halo? Halo, Chung.
Hello.
Halo.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, Chung. How are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Oh, very
I really
good.
have nothing to say more, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's not a question. It's more a statement.
Direct comment, yeah. But you're right about problems, you know. Too often, Chung, we are trying to look for solutions. We are trying to produce answers with our architecture without first understanding whether there's a relevant problem or a relevant question to answer, you know. So you're absolutely right in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It depends on what are you really trying to say, actually.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's meaningless.
Or what you're
But
trying
go
to
on.
answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah.
So here's also the thing that I said in the Insta stories of groups to the audience. Is it true that we could only critics if we already able to make better architectures?
No. Some of the best critics are not even architects. Some of the best critics of architecture are not even architects. And that's why they're great critics, because they're not only discussing about the looks, the aesthetics, they're discussing about the deeper issues. Because architecture is very complex, yeah? There's aesthetics, there's community, neighborhood context, there's mechanical, electrical, there's structure, there's landscaping, there is services, the toilet services. There's so there are many things. Now, the best critics of architecture will not only focus on aesthetics or the parts which of structure. They will talk about very variety of issues. You see, so I do not believe that the best critics are ones who already know how to do good architecture. And in fact, many people who think they do good architecture are actually not doing good architecture. They're merely doing good form. Architecture is not only about form. It's about everything else that is not about form as well. It's about narrative and concept having to do with the true context, yeah, of people, of relationships.
So again, back to critics issues, because we try to understand why the thing that happened today happened, why people very hesitate to critics the fellows or other architects, and why also an architect also usually become like a star architect, like wanting to be a star architect and becoming even further from the critics. Okay, so do we already have a clear history, or does the problem is in the past, or the problem is actually the thing that we are happening right now? Like, could we release ourselves from this burden of a history that caused us to become very hesitant to critics? Do you have any?
It's not specifically about whether we are critics or not, or whether we choose to be critical or not. It has got to do with this human nature, yeah. It is a reason why social networks have blossomed and exploded, yeah. Every one of us must be on Facebook, and how many of you or everyone here, what percentage of you make updates in your Facebook or your Instagram or your Twitter every single day? How many times a day do you do it? This is all about wanting other people to see what you're doing, to feel important, you see. And the moment we criticize, other people will think you're not important because you have done something that is not acceptable in society. It's part of this stupid social networking culture that comes with its own rules of behavior. If you want to participate, if you want to belong like a cow, like a herd to this group, you cannot do these things, some things. Otherwise, you'll be cut out. No one wants to look at, no one wants to like you. And it's so important for us to be liked. I make a comment, every 2 seconds, I'm checking, dah lagi satu like. Oh, there's another like. Oh, there's another like. And then we count our likes as a gauge to how valuable we are. This is stupid. Take yourself out of it. Look at Facebook maybe once a week, once a month. Don't make posts. When you make a post, twist it into Kundalini yoga. Write an essay. Don't write a post. Say something that is really important, not what you had for breakfast. This is crazy. What you had for breakfast is a private matter between you and your stomach. Yeah? Not between you and the whole world. So focus on things which are really important. And this is why we are afraid to criticize as well, because when you criticize, it will be inevitably on a social network. And social networks have rules. You do not criticize like that. Because if you criticize, you will not belong to the network anymore. Even if you belong, no one will want to talk with you, and you will know because no one will like you. No one will like your comments anymore. From 265, it came down to 3, and suddenly, I'm so sad. No one likes me anymore. But silly, likes are stupid. Likes are stupid. The more followers you have, the worse of a human being you are. Followers are don't follow. If you follow, you are only macam anjing. You're like a dog. You're following, and you only know that you can be. You only know if you can lead or not if you choose not to follow. Stop following. Stop liking. Stop following all these things.
But what if the argument is based on curiosity? Like, we follow some architects because we think that the content is interesting, and we also get updated with certain issues or something like that.
This is not true. We follow architects because we like the way their work looks, okay? There's nothing critical about it. So if it is truly about how critical the work is and the explanations of everything they do, that's a different matter. How many architects do this? They don't explain anything. They just show an image of what they've just done. I've just completed this, How do you think it looks? Karen? Wow. Everyone goes, oh, Karen, I like it. It's rustic. It's beautiful, All these same words come out. After spending not even one day, you just spend 15 minutes on Facebook. You don't want to look at it for another year. It's the same old brain-dead, mindless comments. The same kind of images. You've seen that. You don't know whether you saw it yesterday already because it looks exactly the same. Yeah. There's so much cut and paste. Even our comments are cut and pasted. Yeah. Without our realizing it. I'm not trying to say we all, but this is the reason why we have to stop following, because when we follow, we start behaving like the people we follow. We start behaving like everyone else, and you think you're unique, but you're not. You're only unique when you stop and get participating in these silly games and these silly rules and regulations that social networks are about. It makes you stupid, It makes you behave a certain way, and then you don't discover your true self. You can only discover who you are when you spend a bit more time by yourself, and it's a very scary thing. Yeah.
So you also acknowledge that there's this trends of cult type in the architect world, or in the architects. Cult, like something like growing like a cult, or like following celebrities. Cult, yes.
Yeah.
Because this is happening in all over the world, I guess. So,
yeah.
But if we should not follow that path, what path that available actually to us?
Okay, let me give you an example of this cult. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about it in architectural terms. I'm going to talk about it in relation to the gay and lesbian group. Okay, long ago, if you were someone who liked someone of the same sex, you were branded. You were called gay. The word gay was a slur. It was like an insult. Worse still, if you're queer. If you're queer, meaning you kind of like girls, you kind of like boys, people would brand you. They call you a queer and you were ashamed of it. Okay? Today, the people who are gay are proud to be called gay. They're proud to be called queer. Both sides are stupid. Because it doesn't matter whether it's a brand of shame or a brand of pride, it is still a brand. You still belong to a cult. So if you're gay or if you're queer, why do you have to shout it to the whole world? I'm straight. I'm not shouting it to the whole world. I don't care. I don't care whether you are straight. I don't care whether you're gay. I don't care whether you're a queer. I don't care if you're lesbian. You are a human being. This is all that's important to me. You understand? And I would want to know you because of your difference. I don't want to know you because of all the other groups and the hobbies and the special hobbies that you share with a lot of other people. No, I want to know what makes you different. This is what makes me interested in you, you see? I do not want to know you just because you're on Facebook and you're easy to. I'd rather send you a private email rather than send you a message on Facebook. But of course, Facebook is easy because if you're friends already, you can send a message without having to break the ice. But how more exciting to send an email to someone that you want to get to know, and then you receive an email back. It's a private, personal thing. We've lost this, yeah? Social media has made us lose the risk to approach someone from our own, the genius of ourselves, the uniqueness of ourselves. I'm sending you a personal email, me, Rama Indrani, or Snoretta Ananto, or you, Andesh Tomo. I'm sending you an email, and you will reply to me as an individual too. This is a very powerful thing. Social networks have destroyed this personal relationship in many ways. You know?
It's become public relationships. It's become something engaging in publics.
Yes, everyone knows what you had for breakfast. Everyone, no, why? This is crazy. It not only destroys your own private relationships, it destroys tourism, viral tourism. It destroys the places that you love. You eat something very tasty somewhere, you post it with a big photograph all over Facebook, and now 1 million people know about it, and out of the 1 million, 2,000 people go there every day. It's destroyed. This quality of food cannot be the same. Yes. That's what's happened to Italy now. Yeah, it's impossible to visit, not only because of COVID. Even if COVID is not there, it'll be even more impossible to visit because you only see people who want to see the same thing that you saw on Facebook. Yeah, nothing's unique anymore because the social media has destroyed it for us. Yeah, so this has a lot to do with this lack of critical ability as well. We all want to belong to a group with its own rules and regulations that we can then follow and belong. Yeah.
So you emphasize what media, books or journals as into a more productive ways of encouraging critics in the communities. Like should architect make books?
Yeah, not so much journals, but more books, and not architectural books, because you cannot learn about architecture by reading books on architecture. Really, only in school you learn how to build or the craft, yes, but nothing to do with the most important parts of architecture. I think if you want to really learn about architecture, you got to read books that are not written by architects, but about historians and social critics. My favorite ones are Naomi Klein and Noam Chomsky, and they write, and Barbara Kingsolver, and of course Arundhati Roy. They write about the relationships between people and how architecture has a part to play in solving many of these discrepancies. And an example is this, how many of you have ever heard that Louis Kahn has actually done a lot of damage to the relationships between human beings. Louis Kahn is one of the most famous architects in the world. He's definitely among the two most famous architects in the United States. But with a simple thing he said he organizes his buildings based on layering and service versus servant spaces. Yeah, there's served spaces and there's servant spaces. By calling space servant spaces, he created a divide between the nice spaces and the spaces that do not have natural daylight and natural and cross ventilation, because the only people who deserve to be there are servants. Without, how many of us have actually engaged this discourse? He did not intend to do this, but by a simple word of servant, he created a whole legion of followers that created spaces that only the servants use, that are not worth being called spaces of good architecture. Shubra, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Shubra, sorry. Yeah.
Feel free.
Yes, sorry, I thought I would jump in. It's actually rather interesting. He did use the terminology of servant and service. But when you look at his plans, because he didn't do too many houses, his terminology didn't emerge from residential architecture or servant and service as related to how we understand in terms of people or activities. If you see, he started it through a plan organization principle where it could be argued that he actually brought what we thought were things to be forgotten, like mechanical systems, like infrastructure, and gave them an equivalent position in plan. Therefore, they were not things to hide, but they were things that could play off of what, therefore, service and served in his terminology, if you look at his plans, became things that were equivalent rather than one forgotten and only the main spaces glorified. So it could be looked on as the terminology evolving that way. Does it make sense?
Yeah, in a way.
Because the first time he started talking about servant and service was the Richard Medical Center buildings, where you begin to encounter that. And it was really as a means to say toilets are important spaces too. Shafts, etc., are important enough to acknowledge them as a participating feature in your plan making.
I just thought I would throw that in.
You're absolutely right, Shubhra. But as a feature, it was a formal feature. He was trying to organize. You see, most of the hospitals and medical facilities.
It wasn't systemic.
Let me finish.
Systemic. Yeah? Okay.
The medical facilities and hospitals are the most difficult things to design in the world because of the huge amounts of services that they embody. Yeah. The problem with Lucan's insist was to make it formally appealing rather than just to stick them where no one sees and to hide it behind a wall. He made it, he expressed it, but purely as a form, not so much by way of making it easier for the people maintaining it. It was not about people, it was about the form. In the end, that was what it was all about. And it had repercussions in the rest of the world. We started then treating services as something to be seen, as something to be admired, as a form, rather than something that maintenance crew actually have to deal with. This is the problem. So you are right. He wanted to bring it out of the shadows, but in a way which highlighted the form of services and servant spaces, rather than what it actually meant towards creating new relationships between those and the people that worked in them. Yeah, this is the big problem, you see. So even then, and you have a good point, but even then it was about form, about a feature. Yeah.
I'm not completely convinced, but that's okay.
You will be by tomorrow, I'm quite sure.
Okay. So also back to the issues that you said, that you mentioned before. So actually what we should criticize in an architecture, probably not the form is not the thing that should be criticized, but it's more to that. Like if we design a house, we should question ourselves, do we maintain feudalism, or did we maintain inequality in terms of like spatial planning or the rights of functionality? Should we discussing that more? So
yes, but you have to do it in relation to the form, because the form is there. So you can critique the form because maybe the form did not pay greater attention to these feudalistic ways we relate to different classes of people in the building. But we only start with the form because that's what is there. Yeah.
Because in many projects, architects in Jakarta, Indonesia, and I presume in many more places, like we get clients that have this already have these requirements of form, like they would like to show off, or they would like to create a mini palace, mini castle, which is imitate the feudalism era, something like that. So
they already have an idea of what they want.
Yeah. So usually architect doesn't have much choice to give them what they want, instead of to create a dialogue that you described before. Many architects doesn't have the privilege to say no to a project, for instance, like because they need the money, they need at that time, and the only client available are the one who probably not ideal. So how do you respond with these issues?
Well, mind you, I may be 56 now, but there was a time when I was 27 as well. There was a time when I was 29. There was a time when I was 31. I was like in your position as well. And I think that the key thing is not to avoid the responsibility of what you do as a practice, as a practitioner, but to grab it and be responsible for it. So if you are taking a project because you are too afraid to lose it, and you agree to do what the client asks you to do, even though you felt it is not good to do, then just be honest to say, I was not strong enough or not good enough to be able to explain to the client that this is not good. Because mind you, the way you interact with your clients is not merely as a service provider. You are an educator as well. A lot of the job of the architect to win a commission is to educate a client, to have them understand what is necessary and what is not necessary, between needs and wants. All the clients I know exactly what they want. Very few clients know what they really need. Yeah, most clients who are rich, they will want their bedrooms to be completely air conditioned. How do you begin to talk with the client to let them know air conditioning is actually very bad for your health? maybe it's easier for me to say because now I'm 56 and I know how bad it was when I was young and how I woke up when I was 32 years old every morning with my scientist's clock. But it's based on experience when I was 32. So I was able to explain to clients, look, air conditioning, you don't feel so bad right now, maybe because you're young, but when you get older, it will come back to you.
It will haunt you.
Give you cross ventilation so that you can start opening your windows more and using the ceiling fan, and you save electricity. You spend less money. How wonderful is that? So it's about a slow process of education, yeah. And anyone can do it at any age, provided you are not talking about your personal vision of beauty, not about aesthetics, but about how sleeping functions, how eating functions, how cooking functions, to make it easier for them to understand that it is about life and relationships.
So
you want to spend more time with your children. Don't make the
yeah.
bedroom too big, you know?
Yeah. So even if we failed on doing the things ideally as a good architect, I think it should be being honest and not to Photoshop it in the publication into a better one, or like, I designed this with this concept, but it is not. Or if you failed, we hide it from the publics. Should this is also related with the questions on the chat room. Should architects become more transparent into their works instead of like only picking the best views and show it to the world?
You know, years ago when I was, I think almost 20 years ago, I was invited to Singapore for a conference. And I presented a project which the roof had failed. It was leaking. Yeah, it was a British India warehouse. And I explained to them it was leaking because I was trying to save the client money by using smaller roofing sheets, and the overlap wasn't big enough and it was too shallow. So when the wind was blowing, the water went inside. And so I paid for the mistake. I used my own money to pay. It was a lot of money, almost everything I had at the time. And someone who's a famous creative came up to me after the lecture to say, how you should not talk about this. You know, you are doing very well until you talk about your food. Yeah, this is a problem, you know, that we should not be afraid to do this. And when I did a write-up even for the big PJ Trade Center, the Garden Wall offices in Malaysia,
the Garden Wall, yes.
I was asked to submit an essay. I said, why don't you guys write it and write critically about it? They didn't want to. So when I sent them a write-up, I myself did the criticism. That it blocked the view of the hills behind, so that when people were coming through the highway, they did not understand their neighborhood in relation to the hill anymore because my project blocked it. And one of my students sent me a message. Oh, Kevin, who's the person who insulted you, who did the write-up?
It's yourself.
You know? So we shock, people, even students, even the old students, you think you should know better, don't. They still think criticism is bad. But if we are not afraid to criticize ourselves, we will not be afraid for other people to criticize you. We will learn more, yes? You do not learn by having someone praise you all the time. You do not learn anything. You only learn about the things bad about yourself that you do not know. Yeah?
Okay. So one way that to make things situation better is to share our mistakes. It's much better and much useful than to share our best looking side.
Well, it can be depressing if you only talk about failures all the time. So, okay, by all means, throw some good things in there too. but not everything should be good. You know, talk an equal amount about the bad things. And then the project becomes more human. Because you and I, none of us are perfect. We make mistakes. I talk too long. I talk too forever, you know? And I don't let people like Shubra talk enough. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
So also related with that, we already talked for 2 hours straight for you mostly, and also for all of the audience. Almost 300 people joined the meeting. Unfortunately, I think 2 hours is the right amount of time to discuss something. Otherwise, it will be too exhausted. Do you agree, Kevin?
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
so,
sure.
So,
unless anyone wants to ask any more questions, otherwise, we can do another session on another different topic.
That's true. We shouldn't eat the whole cake today. I'll send you the complete chat room to you, so you could read it. All of the questions that probably not being answered in these sessions.
And then
if you want,
I can send back written response so that all the questions can be at least responded. That would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Really
So it will take more time. And even if for the question that you already answered or you already respond, but you want to add or you want to revise, I think would also a good idea because you have more time to respond.
Yeah.
So that's all. I have to apologize for all of the participants that not being taken the question. So I'll send your question. Just text it on the chat room, and I'll send it to Kevin. And probably we could discuss it again, or Kevin will reply directly through email, just like you said.
And I apologize for talking too much. Yeah, I'm sorry. Apakah left a long time ago. Avianti got fed up. I feel really bad now.
No. There's still more than 250 people stick with the 2 hour long. And also I believe that the one that left is already because they have an appointment or something that
Okay.
So that's all
Thanks
for
very much,
all.
everyone.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Thank you so much,
Good weekend
dear
ahead.
friends. We are going to have more, hopefully we're going to have more discussion like this. A discussion that we not showing single pictures of architecture works, probably discussing more into the issues. So keep in touch and thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, thanks so much for
Thank you
attending.
so
Have a
much.
good night. Have a good weekend.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Ya, terima kasih teman-teman. Des.
Mantap.
Kok Andesnya keluar?
Lah.
Teman-teman kalau ada mau yang masih ditanyain ke Kevin boleh di kolom chat ya. Nanti kita akan bantu buat sampaikan ke Kevin dan Kevin akan menjawab dan kita akan share ke teman-teman semua. Terima kasih udah datang. Ada Mas Andy. Mas Dani, makasih. Mas Agit, makasih udah datang. Mas Iwan, Mbak Imelda.
Mantap.
Mas Yoga. Opi, ada Opi. Mas Riri juga ada. Mas Sigit. Terima kasih Randy juga. Teman-teman Rabung Mada.
Sama-sama, Bu.
Thanks, Bo. Sorry telat masuknya tadi.
Iya, nggak apa-apa, Mas. Makasih. Lanjut diskusi apa? Nih, Gi. Ada yang mau lanjut diskusi nggak nih? Mas Haji. Ada Mas Haji dari Malang.
Diskusi Radio House.
Halo, Bu.
Jangan dong, Radio House jangan. Gimana Mas Haji? Kasih pendapat dong. Tadi diskusinya gimana? Ada Happy. Hap, gimana Hap? Teman-teman, ini memang kami belum menutup chat. Silakan teman-teman kalau mau ada yang mau masih menulis pertanyaan buat Kevin, kami persilahkan. Belum kami close Zoom-nya. Silakan.
Dan teman-teman juga kalau mau menanggapi tadi diskusinya, apakah mau ada saran buat formatnya seperti apa, silahkan.